Hey guys, what is up? This is Mel, and I'm back to talk about Legacies, episode 312, titled I Was Made to Love You, which premiered Thursday, May 13th, 2021 on the CW. I'm recording roughly 35 minutes after the episode is aired. So huge spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the episode already, please go do so first, and then come back and see what I have to say about the episode. My other video reminders are up on screen, so take a moment to remind yourselves of those. Before I really get into it, quick YouTube shoutouts to In the Games 123, Golden Angel 15, Thabang Mokiana, and Maria Lira. Thank you so much for your comments on my 311 video specifically, but also thank you so much to everybody who watched that video. We're getting some theories coming to play here, so it's really great to see a bunch of people putting their input into it. And I gotta say, there's a few answers that we got in this episode, so I'm excited to get right into it because it finally came. I'd like to say I called it. I don't know when I called it, but I called it. But it'll be up on screen of when I called it, but let's get right into it. So what happened in this episode? So episode quote was, I was made to love you, was said by Fake Landon. Yep, you heard me right. Fake Landon to Hope and Cleo. I mean, it's kind of, made to love you. No one is made to do anything except if you're literally made to love somebody. So it had to be Fake Landon. But we'll get to that shortly. Timeline-wise, I'm going to say shortly after the events of 311, but I'm pretty sure it's like the end, it's because it takes place at night when they're supposed to be sleeping is when we start the episode off. I think it's like the end of what the day was on 311. So I still think it's kind of like the same day transitioning into the next day. So I'm going to leave it at that. Because I don't think because the previous episode ended with Wade telling Hope his suspicions about Landon not really being Landon. I don't think Hope is going to sit on that for a few days. I think she'd want to take action on it like immediately. So I'm assuming like she was like very like on the nose watching him closely after being told that. So that's why I'm thinking it's very, very shortly after the events of 311. Episode reminder, exposed is what I'm going to say. Exposed to the extreme. Also, the fact that I was made to love you is a clear understanding. Also, I want to point out that I'm pretty sure I said around this episode number was when we would get the type of reveal I keep saying I knew it for. Check the screen in case, but otherwise stay tuned to really know the details for that. Feature creature, I'm gonna say kind of the necromancer, and then kind of Fake Landon, and then kind of who is in charge of Fake Landon. I'm not gonna actually fully say it here because you don't actually really know anything new about them, but Fake Landon is, we'll talk about that right now with the episode breakdowns of storylines. I'm gonna pick on 3 different ones. First one, who is Landon? Second one is Ted is back. Yeah, you heard me. Third one, superheroes no more. So, getting right into the first one, who is Landon? We find out that Landon, he wasn't Malivore, and he wasn't the necromancer like I first previously. He is actually a golem, specifically the Luctus golem. As you remember, during that art auction episode where they had to deal with the leprechaun, Cleo and Hope created a clay bust of Landon's face with the remains of Landon. I think it was his own Malivore goo. And Hope had inscribed Luctus on the shoulder blade, and Luctus was the activation word from which went to the therapy box. And she was with that summer camp themed scenario. So it turns out that this fake Landon the whole time is actually the creation of that that bust. And he was playing it was kind of like two-tone where like he was missing the memories of like his actual origins, and then there's the side of him like he was really made to be Hope's boyfriend and be the Landon that she said he was the idealizations of Landon that she had. But only to find out that Cleo was the puppet master against this version of Landon, because Cleo is the artifact, or she was what was inside the artifact, and she wants Malivore dead so that she could be set free. But in order to do that, she wanted Fake Landon to kill Hope so that she could turn into a vampire and reach her full potential to fulfill her destiny. which I'm not sure if fulfill her destiny in general or fulfill her destiny to destroy Malivore. So we got the confirmation that Cleo was bad. I mean, there were some theories floating around about Cleo being a little bit suspicious. But there's that. Also, here's another thing I realized while I was putting these notes together that I didn't realize when the episode was happening, but was when first when Hope was doing all these tests on Landon, because she knew he's supposed to be human, but he kept triggering all these supernatural detection tests. So right after she used her blood to test him, literally Landon put 3 drops of Hope's blood on his hand, and then it started disintegrating. And then he pretty much got knocked out, or Hope knocked him out, I don't know, or knocked him for the pain. When he woke up again, his eyes flashed like a bright, like a golden yellowy color. They flashed like that. And I was wondering, wait, that looks familiar. Why does it look familiar? That's important as to distinguish who he actually is. Then I remembered that Cleo's eyes flashed that way in the previous episode when they were doing all the tests for her on how she activates her muse powers. Her eyes flashed in front of Landon and Hope's faces. So they saw that, and then that's where the spark of inspiration came from. So that's the actual clue of like, that there's a connection between it, only to find out that she's actually been puppeteering this Landon. So yeah, there's that. We'll get a little bit of that storyline is in the last scene, so we'll get there in a moment. Second storyline, Ted is back. Yeah, Ted the Necromancer. So Alaric's theory about the Necromancer being behind all the monsters' attacks has Josie located the Necromancer at a funeral home, but it's actually Ted with amnesia waking up with an ice cream shop uniform, only to find himself in Mystic Falls and now work at a funeral home. So now this is kind of like Ted's second attempt, because as you remember in season 2, when we saw the Necromancer again, we saw that he was brought back to life as Ted, but he still remembered himself as the Necromancer, and he did everything he could to become the Necromancer again. He went down a very dark path. This time around, Ted doesn't want to be the Necromancer, but he still does magic, and he resurrects people that Alaric needs to kind of prove that he doesn't want to be that evil Necromancer anymore. So he resurrects Leonardo da Vinci's spirit because he's the one who drew up that drawing of the artifact that Alaric lost due to that electrical fire in the previous episode. Problem is, Leonardo speaks Italian, Alaric does not. So that was kind of a little bit of a trouble there. But when they got locked in his office, Ted deciphered one of the spells in the dark magic spell book for a skeleton key type of a spell, which required a certain incantation and a human sacrifice. Alaric thought he would be the one sacrificed and the Necromancer going back to his old ways, but Ted sacrifices himself. And before he dies, Alaric called him Ted, and Ted realized that he was able, because the whole episode, Alaric kept saying that you will always be the Necromancer, you can't change, but Ted was trying to prove to him that he had changed, and before he died, he realized that Alaric saw him as Ted and not as the Necromancer. So we got a little bit there. Is this the end of Ted? I have no idea. We'll come back to that later. Third storyline deals with superheroes no more, and that is, at the end of the previous episode, we saw MG finding Ethan in their superhero hideout with him badly beaten up after he took on that police call at the bar in the previous episode. So MG heals Ethan of all his wounds with his vampire blood, and he decides to tell Ethan about everything about the supernatural. The fact that there's more vampires out there, the fact that there's more werewolves out there, the school, everything, I'm presuming. But then when Ethan tries to understand why MG wouldn't tell him the full truth to begin with, he gets the idea in his head, like, he couldn't understand what all of his other friends are dealing with, so he must become a vampire to fully understand it. So then Ethan gets it in his head that he steals MG's daylight ring so he can go and kill himself because he still has the vampire blood in the system. This leads to a whole realization with MG that, like, that he has to compel Ethan's memories away, which is what he did. So there is no friendship between them anymore. We'll talk about that later. Last scene of the episode, and the reason why I say I knew it is because the prison world warrior comes between Hope and Cleo, knocking Cleo out. And before Alaric can step in, or Hope could step in to fight the warrior, he holds out Hope's necklace, and she tells him to take off the mask, and it is the real Landon in the flesh with slightly longer hair. I knew it. I called it. I knew the warrior had to be real Landon. It just had to. It made sense as to why. So, that's why I'm in a good mood right now, because I got proven right, and I love it when I'm proven right. So, that's how the episode ends. With characters, though, it's going to be very briefly, but Jed, we find him in 2 scenes this episode, and we'll talk about that later. But we find out that he's been to Rome for vacation, yet he can't speak Italian, which is how Alark tried to get him to talk with Leonardo da Vinci, and that did not work. Although we find out from Cleo that she can speak Italian. And she was recognized by the spirit of Leonardo da Vinci. And we find out that she's connected to the artifact. And Ted realized that Leonardo recognized Cleo. And Hope, it was brought up with Hope that, like, she is the artifact or she was in the artifact. So I'm a little confused about that connection, but, like, there is a connection there. But tidbit-wise, though, Lizzie's voice, Lizzie doesn't appear in the episode, but her voice is heard through a letter to Josie where she apologizes, explains her absence, and reveals Finch's secret about being a werewolf, which leads to we'll talk about that later. So in Lizzie's letter, it reveals that she is off campus to go take part in a witch retreat to help her with her self-control issues. Yeah, so there's that. Don't know how long she's going to be away for, though. So that's that thing. Meanwhile, Josie and Finch finally have their talk and clear the elephant in the room between them, not only about their supernatural secrets, but their feelings for each other. And then Josie brings up the idea of Finch joining her back at the boarding school because they're both supernaturals. So they can just be themselves with the protection of the school's walls. And then they get their first kiss as well, which we'll talk about later. We also have Jed revealing to us that the students at the boarding school don't have access to the internet. And also Caleb and Wade were actually absent in this episode, which I'm actually kind of surprised about. I mean, with Caleb, I understand, but with Wade, I would have thought that Hope would have recruited Wade a little bit more to help her figure out who Landon is. See, ooh, that's another issue right there I didn't think of. We'll talk about that later. All right, writing that down so I don't forget. Okay, let's move into the most shocking moment of the episode. The fact that fake Landon is actually the clay bust that Hope and Cleo created, and not Malivore or the Necromancer. I mean, it kind of makes sense now because I did wonder whether or not, like, if the clay glowing meant something more. And comments, I don't remember who said it, but comments are saying, like, well, they used magic, so it's like it was part of the process, or they saw that the glow was happening because they were using magic. So I thought, okay, that's fine. But apparently that actually meant something more. So now I'm wondering if maybe Hope did notice the glow or not. Because I think Cleo did know this glow in order to make... Unless that was all normal and Cleo took the bus so that she took it away and then made him into a golem. I don't know, that's a question. But if you really think about it, fake Landon was actually acting a lot like Simu Landon. Like the whole made to love you thing. I mean, it was kind of weird also. Like, you could definitely... Like, one thing that really did bug me was that when Landon was locked up first and he kept claiming that, like, oh, I'm not a monster, I'm not a monster. And then he kept listing all the ways that he was being the perfect boyfriend to Hope. And like, Cleo was, like, questioning, like, as if, like, well, that doesn't seem odd. And then I'm like, and then it's just, like, the way he worded it is, like, how could you not think that's odd? Either A, he is not actually Landon with the way he was, like, listing all these things that he was doing for Hope because he was meant to be the perfect boyfriend. Or 2, he's been playing her all this long. It's kind of like when someone's, like, playing a con and then all of a sudden they just drop the act and then it's, like, that switch. That was, like, a surprise. It was like, how are you not? How are you? I should have been my first clue that Cleo in this episode was a little off because, like, how could you still think that, like, that's not Landon with the way he's talking? Right. Anyway, and this is before he switched to being knowledgeable of, like, who he actually is. So anyways, that was a shock that it was actually the clay bust of Loctus and not Malabar. I thought if anything it was Malabar. And then I would have been grossed out if it was the Necromancer. Or I guess I kind of would have been grossed out either way if it was the Necromancer, since they're both actually pretending to be Hope's boyfriend. And it's just like, no, I don't need that fakeness in there, because that's going to cause so many more issues for Hope. But anyways, top 3 favorite moments. First one, Prison Warrior reveal. The Prison World Warrior reveal being the real Landon, proving that I was right. I love it. It was also, I mean, I don't like the fact that it was the last scene of the episode, because that's like a huge cliffhanger. But then, like, I love that that was actually him, because I did state, I think when the Prison World Warrior was first shown, I did hope that it would be the real Landon, because then we could probably get a storyline from him where he had to be on his own for who knows how long, because the time worked differently in the prison world than in the real world. And he had to be alone and isolated, and he had to pretty much survive. And I hoped that it would be something similar to Purgatory Dean that we got from Supernatural in season 8. So now that we actually know that the warrior is Landon, the real Landon, I'm hoping for some type of like a repercussion from him being isolated and on his own. And like, it seems like with him dressed up the way he is, it seems like he's learned how to fight too. I don't know how, maybe from the experience of all the monsters in the prison world. But I'm definitely excited to see what experiences he picked up along the way. So I'm excited for that. Second favorite I had was actually the fight scene between Hope and Fake Landon. It's very interesting, not only to see them playing this very contrasting dynamic between the two of them, but just also from what I remember, the conversations they were having while they were fighting was actually pretty interesting too, because Fake Landon was actually trying to get Hope to see that her dying, he wasn't trying to kill her, but he was trying to get her to activate her vampirism, but that means she has to die, kind of a thing. So and then his arguments about how like he wasn't as fragile as human Landon, he could live longer, he could be by her side, or like they could be together forever essentially, because he wouldn't age like a human would. So it was very interesting how he was trying to appeal to her, but it was also just very interesting to see the types of like the fight choreography as well between them. So that was pretty cool. Another favorite I did have was Josie and Finch. Finally having their first kiss, but actually being honest with each other. And like, I'm hoping Finch actually goes to the boarding school and we can actually see her and Josie attempting a relationship without the fear of other people finding out that they're a witch and a werewolf. They could just freely be together at the school as they're trying to figure out like what their actual dynamic is between each other without putting on a front for the other students, like at the Mystic Falls High School. So I'm very interested to see that. I'm really like the fact that they cleared it out of the way of like apologizing for Lizzie's actions and like the secrets between them. But then to be fair, you're not going to start off with saying like, hey, I'm a werewolf, hey, I'm a witch, if you don't know the other one's even part of the world. So I really like, also, just a side note, because it is a part of this storyline, it was very cool to get Ted giving Josie advice about how she should talk to Finch about her feelings, because at the first part she was just like, she didn't want to touch that, kind of like she didn't want to approach it and like and get rejected. But Ted was supportive, and he was kind of like, and he made sense too on how like working a funeral home, all people here are saying are words that they never got to express because their loved one has passed, but Josie has a chance to actually tell the person she has feelings for what she feels for because she's still alive. So it was very interesting to see the progression between them. And a surprising favorite I had was actually Alaric and Ted. The fact that just having Alaric so insistent that Ted is the necromancer, he's not going to change no matter how much Ted says, to the very end of Ted's death, and having Alaric see like and think of Ted as being Ted and not as a necromancer, and seeing that he has changed. And for Ted to have his dying words be like, for me to die knowing that like you see me as Ted and like not as the evil necromancer that he kept referring to him as, it seemed like he could move forward. But I don't know what that could mean though. We'll talk about that later. Moving on to top 3 peeved moments. This one is just a peeve because it's something that I kind of hoped wouldn't come true, but it looked like paths were going that way, and it was the fact that Cleo was evil. Or not evil, Cleo was the antagonist. She's the one that's going against, or I should say, she's the one that's wishing harm to Hope, and that is by wanting her to die to become a vampire. I guess I should say, like, the peeve is the fact that I really did not want Cleo to be someone who betrayed the Super Squad, and it turns out she actually is. I mean, like, yeah, that's a great reveal, but, like, with the way that Cleo's and Hope's friendship was forming since they first got introduced, it was a friendship I'd hope we would see for seasons to come. It's something where I'd hope that we get to see her make a new friend and not a friend that she grew up with, or make a friend with people she hasn't grown up with and then just started becoming friends with. Cleo is a completely brand new person. She'd have to know them from the very beginning, kind of a thing. So I kind of wish that it would have been a friendship we would have seen blooming for seasons, however long this lasted. But the fact that Cleo is now actively an antagonist against Hope has dashed that, and that's why it's a peeve. Another peeve that I do have is MG compelling Ethan about, like, I understand why MG compelled Ethan to forget about the supernatural secret, but I didn't want it to come at the expense of their friendship. But then when you think about it, their whole friendship was based on the fact that he was a vampire, and they bonded over that superhero quality kind of thing. So I'm kind of sad that, like, it looks like the friendship is over between them. I wish it didn't have to be that way. But I understand why MG did it, because he was doing it to protect his friends and to ultimately protect Ethan from making an impulse decision to become a part of the supernatural world when you lose a lot more than you gain from it. And then the third peeve that I thought of earlier was actually the peeve that Hope didn't think to go to. It was, okay, so initially Hope went in search of Lizzie to help deal with fake Landon. We figured it was because she needed a witch, but it turned out no, she just needed someone who also knew Landon, and that's why she didn't go to Cleo. But my peeve comes from the fact that why didn't Hope go to Wade? I mean, like, if you didn't need a witch, why, and you just needed someone who also knew Landon, why would you not go to Wade, who brought the suspicions to you first, right? I mean, if anything, he would know the other sides of Landon that Cleo seemed to have missed when she brought Luctus Landon to life, right? So I didn't realize that until earlier on in the recording. But and since Wade wasn't even in the episode, I thought if anything, she would have called upon Wade for help. Like, I thought that's what was going to happen, and it didn't turn out to be the case. So, like, I'm a little pissed by that, because, like, Wade did all the work letting her know, like, there's something off about Landon, and yet you're not going to keep him on to figure out the mystery together. I mean, like, why not? Right? So there's that. Moving on to random questions. I actually do have a lot, so let's get started. First, is this the true end for Ted, since he seemed to have found a new, I don't know, a new like, moving forward, a new acceptance for the end for this life, or will we see the necromancer return now that Ted is dead? Because isn't that what Malivore did the first time around? When the necromancer died at the end of season 1, he came back in season 2 as a human, as Ted, and he pursued dark magic and tried to become the necromancer again and go down the dark path, which is not what the necromancer wanted for him to do. And yet, so when the necromancer died again and was brought back to life again as Ted, he went down a different path. So I'm wondering, would that mean, like, he's now truly moved forward into the afterlife, or is he now just going to repeat the cycle of him being the necromancer again? I don't know. To be honest, I actually like this version of Ted. I mean, the necromancer was great for a while, but, like, Ted trying to prove that he's good and doing all these things to help Alark out and like sacrificing himself to help Alark escape. I like this version of Ted, and him being supportive of Josie. It was just like, this was great. I like this version of him. Okay, next question. A fake lantern was made from clay and he wasn't made from Malivore. I don't understand how he reacted so badly to Hope's blood. I mean, the only thing I can understand is that it's the Malivore mud or the goo that Landon kind of disintegrated from the cemetery crypt, and then that was used to turn into the clay that made Gollum Landon, and then that was reacting to the blood. Then I can understand if that was the reason why the blood reacted to him so badly. But otherwise, if it was just because it was random clay, it's just like I was kind of confused as to why it would affect him. The blood would affect him the way it did. That's just a thing there. Next question. Does Cleo only want Hope to become a full tribid because that means that she could defeat Malivore and set Cleo free? But then I'm also confused because isn't Cleo already technically free if she's walking free? Or is she more tethered like all the other Malivore monsters where they're set free but they have to return back to Malivore? Or like the genie in season 1 where like she told Lizzie that she became enslaved by Malivore once she met him, so Lizzie wished for her to never have come across Malivore, which set her free. I don't know. I really don't know what Cleo is. All I got from that is like, you're the artifact, but then I don't even know what the artifact is. Is it Pandora's box? Was she something that was in Pandora's box? Like, whoa, like I don't get it. So there's that. Another question. If Ethan is compelled to forget, what does that mean for him? Does this mean he'll have less screen time? Like, are we back to only one scene an episode with Ethan? Like when Josie first got to Mystic Falls High School? Or what? Like, how are they going to incorporate him now that he doesn't have the friendship with MG? Plus, will that mean MG will return to the boarding school? That was a very short-lived friendship. I mean, like, I feel like he could have compelled Ethan in a way that they could have kept the secret, but then not have him in harm's way. Like, you know, like, I feel like there could have been a way for that to happen. Next question. If students had no access to the internet, why couldn't Alark use his phone to get a translator app so he could talk to Leonardo himself? That kind of didn't sit right for me. Because, I mean, I can understand if, like, you were in a world where you didn't have, like, Wi-Fi or, like, internet in your world. Like, you're further back in the past. But then at the same time, it's like, no, the students have internet. The students have cell phones. Alark, you have a cell phone. So why wouldn't you use that to go online to get it on translator app, or just go to Google and Google Translate? Like I feel like you would, desperate times, you go find other means, right? So that just didn't really, that once that came in my head, it's like, why didn't you use your phone? Like, it was a huge surprise when Jed said that, like, the students don't have access to the internet, which I can understand because, like, you don't want them cheating and stuff like that. But then at the same time, it's like, Alark, you're the headmaster. Why do you not have access to the internet? Like, what? All right, and a last question. When is Jed going to get tasked with more things? This episode, he was only in 2 scenes. Previous episode, he was only in 1 scene. When are we going to get more? Like, Jed is, like, aside from Hope, Jed is our only access point to a werewolf. And now we have Finch. So if Finch comes to the school, I'm expecting scenes between Finch and Jed, because now we got a female and a male werewolf, so we can get both sides of what that experience is like, because Hope's experience is going to be very different from Finch's experience because Hope is a tribrid, while Finch is not. So if that's what I'm waiting for, and that's when we're going to get more Jed episodes, then, like, okay. Because I really like Jed's Jed's input in that one episode, where the Banshee episode. Like, give me more Jed. Like, come on. And also give me more Wade. Like, yeah. There's that. I'm moving on to predictions very quickly. Based off the promo for 313, it looks like Landon readjusts to being around people, and it has been a while, he says. It looks like Caleb has a bad feeling, and it looks like Hope catches Landon in a fist fight outside of Mystic Falls High School. Wonder why they're both there to begin with. But the synopsis for the episode reads, faced with a difficult decision regarding one of his students, Alaric enlists Caleb and Josie's help to get their perspective. Meanwhile, Cleo opens up about her past. Hope, Landon, and Jed also star. So, difficult decision regarding one of his students. Either that has to be about Cleo, or it has to be about Landon. It has to be one of the two. The reason why I'm thinking Cleo is because Caleb's perspective, well, maybe it's because of like the whole crush thing that Caleb has, or Josie's perspective could be like the whole her dark Josie kind of experience. But then if it's Landon, interesting. Faced with difficult decision regarding students. If it was Landon, I'm thinking it could be either or, because Josie could be pro Landon and Caleb could be con Landon in how to deal with his readjustment. Same thing for Cleo. Caleb could be pro Cleo and Josie be con Cleo. I don't know. Those are the only two students I could think of that Alaric would find needing extra advice for it. Also, I'm hoping he brings Dorian in for this as well. But otherwise, that is pretty much it, guys. But I'm pretty sure we're roughly on track on what I said. Like, maybe we were supposed to get the reveal of where Landon is, or what at least happened to Landon. Seems like we're on track. But I definitely can't wait to see what the next episode has in store, and so we can find out what actually did happen to Landon during his time in isolation from people in the prison world. And also we learn more about Cleo's past. So I'm hoping we get more answers about what she means about being the artifact or being in the artifact. I don't know. But I can't wait to know about that. But otherwise, guys, what did you think about this episode? What did you guys like about it? What do you think will happen next? Let me know in the comments down below. Love to hear your own thoughts, theories, and opinions about all that good stuff. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos if you haven't done so already. Also, click that notification bell if you want to get notified of when I post the videos, because I'm not consistent with specific days. I do apologize for that. But yeah, the bell is probably your best option. If you want, check out my Tumblr page. Link for that is down below. I read blog promos, web clips, quotes, gifs, synopses, news, all that good stuff, all found in one place. Go check that out. I'm a little behind now, but it's definitely on the list of things I have to do. So just check that out and check back in or follow it if you want to be updated that way. Also, WordPress account, link for that is down below. Anything I post online is connected to WordPress, a little more organized, a little more detailed, but still a work in progress once again. I think that's about it, guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your patience. I hope you come back next week to see what I have to say about 313. We're more than halfway through the season now. It'll be interesting to see where we go from here now that we know. I guess the mystery is just still going to be about the box, and I guess what happened with Landon. But we'll have to wait and see. So check back in to see what I have to say about the next episode. Come see my theories. Come share your own theories with me, and we'll enjoy the ride together. So, take care, everybody. Stay safe during these difficult times. Please wear a mask, and have yourself a great day or great night, wherever you are. Bye for now.